Oh, uh, hey Strikers. Some of you might recognize my voice as the guy behind the channel Omega Strikers Nation, the premier channel for all Omega Strikers content. Or more precisely, maybe the only channel making Omega Strikers content. But it's official. The updates for Omega Strikers are going to wind down before stopping at the end of 2023, and what a strange journey it's been. But to see why Omega Strikers failed, we need to start at the beta. The open beta coming out was a fun surprise for us. We enjoyed it so much that we made a YouTube channel, along with our friend Bunny Muffins, to make content exclusive to Omega Strikers because it was just so much fun. Being able to play with two of your friends and crush people in an air hockey waifu fighting game? Sign me up! After the beta ended, we took a break from releasing content so we could double down preparing for the launch in April 2023. We had a solid lineup of videos saved and ready to release, and we even did a collab with Caleb Solomon about the music in the game.
I'm going to be talking about the music for this game. Holy cow, is this stuff good.
Check out his channel if you want to see some interesting music and remixes. April came, the game launched, and we hit the ground running. We kept pumping out videos about everything we could think of until we ran out of content to make. We'd made tons of videos breaking down everything about the game, from beginner tutorials, climbing guides, tier lists. We got it! Everyone loved Atlas, and countless other topics. But as the weeks turned into months, with 5 new Striker releases and only small balance changes, the channel quickly devolved into just boring patch reviews. And no matter how much you love the game, you can only get so excited for a 5% buff here, 2% nerf there. The game felt like it needed more characters, more maps, more mechanics, or just something to mix it up and add to the game. So with so much love towards the game, but feeling a bit sad to see one of our favorite games go the way of the dodo, we'd like to do a little pre-post-mortem to see where some other games got it right, and why Omega Strikers failed to launch. A big reason that many games pick up traction early is because they have content drops and balance changes weekly, if not more often. The frequent updates keep the game feeling fresh and new, cycling the meta and constantly adding new things to explore. A great example is League of Legends. I know it's hard to compare a small indie dev to a billion-dollar behemoth with thousands of employees who... Wait, Riot Games was also a small indie dev when they started, weren't they? But in 2009, League of Legends came out of the gates strong. They released bi-weekly patches with new champions and constant balance changes, trying to find their footing. Within 3 years of launch, they'd added 69, nice, characters to their game. And while we won't speak to how well some of those launches were received, it kept the game compelling and kept us no-lifing it. You'd think a group of mostly former Riot Games devs would take some of that fire to their new company, no? All that being said though, the complete lack of balance changes in Omega Strikers made for a boring experience. You'd see Strikers dominate the meta for weeks at a time. We're not sure if Rasmus on Amy's app was still absolutely busted, but our point stands. It's almost like Odyssey were afraid to make big changes to bring Strikers up or down to manageable levels. All the micropatch after micropatch succeeded in showing players was that they weren't getting any meaningful changes anytime soon. And more important than us whinging about individual characters, it really just felt like there wasn't really a lot to change. What could you change? Knockback numbers? Damage amounts? Core knockback? Cooldowns? There just weren't enough things to viably balance a game around. It is a very simple game at the end of the day. Hit core, score goals, acquire ELO. The overall idea behind the game sounded like a ton of fun on paper. It's a sports, fighting, MOBA, harem anime... Wait, what? But the execution ends up being overly simplistic and loses the depth that the main games in those genres provide. There just isn't a lot of deeper strategy that goes into playing the game other than mechanics. Pick good awakenings, hope your goalie isn't brain dead, strike second, double hit, don't get tilted.
Obviously the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent the air is salt.
The simplicity of the game that made it fun to hop in for a fun air hockey game also detracted from the game that Odyssey thought it was going to become. Odyssey's goals for Omega Strikers seemed like they wanted to hit it big and be the next Rocket League of Legends. With a massive budget for an AMV from Trigger and endless Twitch promoters, they weren't satisfied with a chill game. The game could be in a fine state if they had prepared more strikers, maps, game modes for the initial few months after launch, or it could be fine if it was just a small team working on it with a minimal budget. It felt like they tried too hard to be the next big esport, but it's just too simple of a game to be that. It was too big of a budget for a game that couldn't support the goals it felt like they had in mind, so what we get is a business decision to make it abandonware, only to move on to their next game. With each major patch, players would come back and try the game out. The August content patch had a big spike in players coming back, Genshin strats. October 19th gave us the release of Now, and the game had another big spike in players coming back. We got 5 new strikers in 5 months, which for the scale of the game, that's pretty good honestly. And generally in these types of games, new characters can change the entire balance of the game, so in a certain way, it can almost feel like a balance change. But none of the strikers were game-breaking in any meaningful way. Okay, most of them. What a shocking twist. A game dev company manages to release mostly balanced new characters, and it's not a good thing? Every major patch had an uptick in players, but with how samey it all felt, it kept dropping back below where it was beforehand. During the beta, OS hit a certain niche. It was a short and fun game to sink a few minutes into each game. Games would typically last between 4 to 8 minutes. That changed completely with the official release. With the addition of goal gates and the change from first to 5 goals to win to best 3 out of 5 rounds wins, along with moving away from trainings to awakenings and the draft phases it now entailed, it moved from a tiny niche of short competitive games to kill time and fill space, to much more occupied space of 15 to 25 minute games, where most of the common, most famous online games fill. Because people tend to have one game they have as their main game, and they play other games when they need a change of pace. Omega Strikers had the potential to become the side chick game, if you will. But the problem with side chicks is they're interchangeable. What am I saying? This metaphor isn't landing for Omega Strikers players. With the one-dimensional gameplay there, it's not the sort of game you'd put a ring on and play for 5 to 10 years, like we definitely didn't do for League. And although it's full of content and very pretty, it should have been content just being a diversion for a fun 5 minutes. In the end, god-awful metaphors aside, what did the overall failure come down to? The game's simplistic nature, lack of content drops, lack of meaningful balance changes, the change from first to 5 goals to win to best 3 out of 5 rounds wins, and the lack of a true identity. Like we said before, the game is kind of a sports game, it's kind of a fighting game, it's kind of a MOBA, and it's definitely a harem. So it ends up being a jack of all trades, and very much a master of none. If your identity is, it's air hockey meets Smash Bros, that sounds fun and awesome, but that's not going to pique a lot of interest. And if it's impossible to get even your friends to play the game, how are you going to keep the player base growing? And if you can't keep people around, then your game dies, which is sad.
Oh well, back to the dump. To the dump, to the dump, to the dump, dump, dump.
Honestly, it's not really Odyssey's fault the game failed. They came up with a fun game with an interesting concept. It just wasn't interesting enough to pull people away from other games. Every game can't be a 10 out of 10 best game ever played. We enjoyed playing the game, we really enjoyed making videos, and we're sad to hear the news. But it felt like it was a long time coming. Our time was short, but it was fun. Anyways, what were your favorite parts of Omega Strikers? We'd love to hear some of your favorite moments, or what you think of the situation. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe for some probably not Omega Strikers content. But most importantly, thanks for watching.